Hey everybody, welcome to Marvel Monday. I'm your host, Surprise. We finally reached the top 10. Are you excited? Now I know this came a week later than I had promised, but I wanted to give everyone a chance to see Avengers Endgame. I know some people haven't seen it yet, but I could only wait so long. Now, there are going to be some spoilers for Avengers Endgame, so if you have not seen that, you can either skip that part of this or just come back to this when you have. So without further ado, let's get to the list. At number 10, X-Men Part 2. This was the best of the original trilogy. We got some new mutants. The Nightcrawler scene to open the film would probably be voted the best scene in all of the X-Men movies of all time. Jean sacrificing herself, Pyro and Iceman, Lady Deathstrike versus Wolverine fight. The list goes on and on about the fun we got with this movie. One of the best stories ever told in the film franchise, and possibly the last time any of it actually made sense. Number 9, Deadpool. When Ryan Reynolds was Wade Wilson in X-Men Origins Wolverine, it let us see him as Deadpool, and in the beginning of the film, it was as if the comic character had broken the fourth wall for real and was on our screens. Of course, we all know how it ended. So then nobody wanted a Deadpool anymore, not if it was going to be from this. We wanted one, but we wanted it done right, and this wasn't. Well, just when it seemed it wasn't going to happen, we got that leaked footage, and it was perfect. Absolutely perfect. So perfect, Fox had no choice but to make it now. The rest of the movie was just as perfect as the test footage. Foul-mouthed, sideways sense of morality, funny, fourth-wall-breaking, meta-joke-having, non-stop smart-mouth fun. I am glad we never got a PG-13 version of it, and I'm also glad they made it exactly the way it's made, and that we got Ryan Reynolds. This movie was funny, action-packed, interesting, and wonderful. Number 8, Captain America: The Winter Soldier. The first time I watched this, I didn't realize just how good it was. I didn't think it was bad, but I also didn't realize just how important this movie was to the MCU when I saw it. I was also watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. at that time, and I love how the movie and the show were much more closely connected at that time. When Hydra struck in the movie, they also attacked on the show, so I went back and watched it again and realized just how redefining for Cap this movie was. They took a character that was borderline uninteresting and put him in the perfect element to make him interesting. The people giving him the orders were the bad guys. He sees his best friend from the past, the only guy that always believed in him, thought long gone, and then he attacks him. He's forced not only to ask Sam for help, but put him in danger in doing so. He has to save his best friend and stop Hydra all at the same time. He has to reinvent himself to get with the modern times, and he has to in a hurry. He can't catch his breath before he's forced to reevaluate what he believes in again and again in this film. In doing so, the filmmakers reinvent him for us. They make a dull character not only relevant, but interesting. Not only that, but the relationship established with Cap refusing to let go of the thing that tied him to the past, to a time that made more sense to him, a time when he belonged. That set the groundwork for what would happen in the future, why he was willing to lie to Tony for Bucky, why he followed him anywhere no matter who stood in the way, why the Avengers weren't together for Infinity War. All these things for the only sequel in the entire MCU to crack the top 10. Number 7, Black Panther. Black Panther was a movie that felt proud to represent itself. Many of my friends have commented how it felt to finally have a hero to represent their culture, their color, and their heritage. The score was so good, and the villain is one of the 3 best in the entire MCU. He was a man who saw a problem with the world and was willing to do anything to stop it, even if that meant defying authority. His arc was so similar to what a hero's arc is, with only minor things separating his from that of a hero's. Obviously, murder, theft, and many of the things Killmonger was willing to do to achieve his goal are what separates him as a villain and not a hero. But he wanted many of the same things a hero does. This was one of the best movies I have ever seen. Number 6, The Avengers. The team-up movie 4 years in the making. 5 movies before setting it up, bringing separate film stars together slowly, all appearing together for the first time, juggling the screen time together, making it about why they came together. So many things to love about this movie. Hulk and Thor fight scenes, Hulk smashing Loki, the Avengers fighting each other when the big 3 first meet, The scene when it scrolls from one Avenger to the next in the Battle of New York is one of the best scenes of all time. There's no denying this movie worked. The fans can tell you. Avengers was one of the best comic book movies of all time. It built the story well. They tried to be in the same room more than once before it took the death of Coulson to finally bring them together. Once they finally figured out how to work together, their roles, and what each was willing to do to get the job done, they were the Avengers. It was a great film. Number 5, Avengers Endgame. There's so much to say about this film. The one word I've used repeatedly to describe it is satisfying. I was sure it was going to focus on the original 6 from the first Avengers, and it did, but I was worried there would only be small cameos from the rest of the characters we've come to love that have come since, possibly only relegating them to being saved at the very end. This definitely felt like the end of the story for the 6. What a way to end their stories. I have it ranked this low because there were things that I felt were less than perfect about it, but considering the runtime, this was about as good as it could get. I won't focus on the things I thought were less than flawless because there were too many things that they got so perfect. America's ass. I love you 3000. Those are some of the things we will be quoting from now until time ends. I could talk about this movie for hours. Some of the highlights to me were definitely On Your Left, everyone coming back, the final battle, and the revisiting of the original Avengers movie. The humor was more well done in this than I expected. The girl power scene was wonderful in this. I love that Okoye paid homage to Black Widow in that scene. I love that they did everything they could to give every character at least one scene in this movie, especially in that final glorious battle. The only character I wish they could have brought back that they didn't was Coulson, but besides that, they brought so many of them back. I don't even have time to list everyone that got to come back for this. Thank you, Marvel, for this movie, and for ending the Avengers storyline this way. Oh, and thank you for finally letting him say it. Avengers, assemble. Number 4, X-Men, Days of Future Past. This was my favorite X-Men movie. This was all of them together for the only time. The second generation with the first. Wolverine bridging the gap. Warpath, Bishop, Storm, Blink, Colossus. All these powerful mutants, and, for the most part, they got their powers right for all of them. They got to let loose with their powers too, so that was a bonus. Then we get to go back and see Wolverine interact with Beast, Charles, and Magneto. Then, during all that, we get the best action scene ever from an X-Men movie, that Quicksilver scene. Nobody that saw this movie can argue how good that scene was, even better than the aforementioned Nightcrawler scene. The last act suffered just a bit from that scene in my opinion though, as none of the rest of it could match just how great that scene was, although Magneto carrying RFK Stadium is pretty cool. If you've seen the Rogue Cut, then you hopefully enjoyed this movie even more like I did. I wish they could have left those scenes in it. Seeing some of our favorite mutants die was so heartbreaking. The timeline being reset by this movie helped with the continuity a little bit, though definitely not enough. Without a doubt, the best movie with the X-Men and my second favorite in the entire Fox franchise. Number 3, Captain America Civil War. This movie was instrumental in making Infinity War end the way it did. This movie split the Avengers down the middle in fundamental ways. The airport fight scene was such an epic fight. It's the only time we've gotten Spider-Man and Cap together. That is, until Endgame, of course. But even in that, I don't remember them really spending any time together. Friend fighting friend, or in true Civil War fashion, brother fighting brother. The newcomers got to show off all their skills. Speaking of newcomers, this movie debuted 2 very amazing characters. Black Panther was such a total badass in this movie. It got everyone excited for his solo outing, which, as we've covered, lived up to the hype plus some. Spider-Man was such a bright spot in this movie, so good. Fighting for Tony Stark, there's no other reason Peter is even there. Iron Man, his hero, recruited him, and he was there. Number 2, Avengers Infinity War. Last year when I made my top 20 MCU movies, this hadn't released yet, but it was close. We knew we had an epic movie on the horizon. I had it ranked 19 just to make 20 MCU movies. I only thought I knew what I was about to get myself into. 10 years, 18 movies, and several different characters in basically separate universes all being brought together for the first time. There definitely had never been anything like this. They started it beautifully with silence, followed by the Asgardian distress call. This immediately followed by dead bodies everywhere and the infamous Black Order on our screens, with the creepy voice of Ebony Maw with nobody to silence his foreboding monologue. Then Thanos gets his chance to monologue, with the famous lines from the trailers. Dread it, run from it, but here he is. We lose some of our favorite characters before the opening Avengers logo is even on the screen. The stakes are higher than we even knew. I want to mention how some of the early criticism of the MCU was their forgettable scores. That cannot be said ever again after this movie. From the perfect time to play the right music, Thanos' song, the Avengers theme when Thor shows up in Wakanda, to the perfect time to let the score stop completely and let the decimation happen with silence in the background. Until you started hearing the screams around from all the loved ones disappearing. This was the most amazing, most beautiful team-up movie you could ever have asked for. So much flavor from so many different franchises. So much love shown in so many different ways throughout the lifetime of these films, to see it all stripped away in moments, and we can't do anything about it. Our heroes can't do anything about it. We're left to hold each other and tell our children it will be okay. The Avengers will bring back Spider-Man, Groot, and Black Panther. They have to. But now we know there may be a cost. Now we know Thanos is the best comic villain of all time. The stakes are real. He beat our heroes. We were left for a year, waiting for the outcome. I've never watched a movie as many times as I have this one. This is one of my favorite movies of all time, no matter the genre, no matter the time. It was so amazing, so beautiful. They brought it all together correctly. They gave us so much. I can't say enough how much I loved about this movie. What movie could I possibly love more? Number 1. Logan. This movie gets put at the top of my list for many reasons. Logan has been the face of the XMen for so long, and for this to be the ultimate swan song for any hero in any franchise is perfect. Toning down the amount of characters in this was a necessary step to ensure the story was done right. X-23 was superb in this. I was left speechless from this movie. I can't even begin to say all the things it made me feel. No movie has ever made me cry so hard. No words can do it justice, in my opinion. If you've seen it, then you know why it is such a masterpiece. Her crying, "Daddy," when he died, still tears me up. Him finally getting to rest was needed. The little boy holding the Wolverine toy was heartbreaking. But turning the cross to make an X, even typing this and saying it out loud, it makes me tear up. This movie was the perfect end to the franchise to me. Sure, other movies came after it, but to me, there's never been a better ending to a storyline, a franchise, and a genre than this movie. The greatest comic book film ever made when you consider all the movies leading up to it. This is my all-time favorite movie. So that's my list. Some amazing movies here, especially in the top 10. You could make a case for them to be moved around some, sure, but these are my favorites, and to me, the order is almost perfect, especially the top ones. Thank you so much for an amazing year and for tuning in to my lists. So go enjoy these movies, share them with the next generation, and until next time, Excelsior.